Oh, yes. This is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. And today's show has a sponsor. What? Cheshire Impact. Who are these guys? On a mission to help you maximize your use of Pardot and Salesforce. CheshireImpact.com. Boom. Now, my guest today, he is like a brother from the other vendor. He is a Marketo wizard. He's a fellow strategist of the revenue. He's the CEO of Revenue Pulse, founder of NAC, which we're going to talk about. Really cool. Aficionado, marketing and technology. Speaks 3 languages. I speak 1.5. And 4-time Marketo champion, user group leader, Revy finalist, Pierce Ujjainwalla. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
How was that introduction? Did we hit everything or did I miss something?
That was awesome. It's tough to follow that up there, but thank you.
Yeah, we set the bar high on you. But hey, I'm glad you're here because really the topic, it's all about, you get this technology. We want people to actually use it. We want people to get the benefit of it. You got tools like Pardot or Marketo, whatever the tool is. We want people to actually be able to track ROI and be able to have that, whether it's first touch or even understand your actions later on. Understanding is what I'm doing. Does that even matter? Right. So I wanted to have you on here. I mean, you've got the word revenue in the name of your company. You eat and sleep and breathe it. So I wanted to just have you on here and just learn from you and everyone else too. So here is Thor's hammer. I'm passing this to you. I want you to take Thor's hammer and smash for us like a myth, some bogus strategy you're hearing out there around, marketing and ROI and these kind of things. Just smash it to smithereens and let's go from there.
Yeah, totally. I think, I think in the past I actually started my career at a big business intelligence provider, Cognos, that was acquired by IBM. And I mean, back in those days, you had to spend millions of dollars to get a BI tool in place and really get that visibility. So I think, the myth that I would smash is that you don't have to spend boatloads of money anymore to get really a world-class business intelligence system up and running.
Okay, it doesn't take millions of dollars. That's good because I don't have $1 million I want to spend on that. I'd rather buy an island in the Caribbean with it. So what does it take?
Yeah, I think, you're a Pardot guy, I'm a Marketo guy. I think to get started, these vendors have out-of-the-box reporting and analytics that people can use to get them, oftentimes more than they've ever seen before. And then, what we see with a lot of our clients is they might start out with that, kind of push it to its limits. And more now, people are using these point-and-play solutions like Snowflake as a data warehousing solution, or Redshift from Amazon, and then layering on like a Tableau on top of there. And that's something you can dip your toe in the water without, investing a ton of money.
Huh. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Can you track everything? Should you be tracking everything? Where should we be focusing? I mean, obviously something like having your own database and then throwing Tableau on top of it, you could look at everything, right? You could spend days deep in the dungeons of data.
Totally. I think so now it's easier than ever before to track, obviously online, but also offline marketing activities like events and all these types of things that, before, especially for marketers who are new to this, have never thought of that. Now, are we ever going to be able to track the impact of like a billboard on the side of the highway? I think getting to that level, that may be one example where, that might be tough to be able to track. But anything where you can have kind of a dedicated URL from even a magazine ad, right? That's something that before was impossible to track, now can be tracked relatively easily if you can convert someone from offline to online.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. You have tools that you can take advantage of. Before you even dive into the tool, what do you walk your clients through, or how do you want them to approach it? How do you approach it
Yeah.
in terms of setting everything
Yeah, totally. I think to start, putting some kind of marketing automation platform in place is a really critical first step, right? That is, your marketing foundation. That's where all of the data, both online and offline, is going to come in and be stored so that eventually you can get to doing reporting.
up? Okay.
That's where we typically start with our clients, right? Getting them set up with a good marketing automation foundation,
Sure.
setting it up so that no matter what kind of marketing campaign they're running, we give them a mechanism to be able to do that
Okay.
and the mechanism to capture all that data. So usually, people will start there, they get comfortable, they start running their campaigns, and then, reporting often comes after that step, right? And like I mentioned, to start, hey, these vendors give you out of the box reporting and analytics. Like, is it as good as a marketing data lake with Tableau on top? No, definitely not.
Would you call that a
But
data lake?
data lake, yeah.
That's really
Yeah,
badass. I don't think I've ever
yeah,
heard that before. But that doesn't
yeah.
mean it's not said. It just means I had no idea.
Yeah, no,
Data lake.
so it's essentially like the evolution of your traditional data warehouse. Yeah.
So was it like a data box before, and then it turned into a data lake?
This is a great book. Okay, do a plug here.
Oh, okay.
Marketing Lake by a good friend of mine, Anish Ujjainwalla.
Okay, so you held it up. It was the data marketing,
Marketing Data Lake, yeah.
the
You can
marketing
download
data lake.
this
Okay,
if you Google it. It's a free download.
cool.
Um,
Oh, it's a free download?
I won't pretend to know as much as Anish does, but it's a good summary of what it is.
Okay, yeah. What's the 2 cents on it then? What did you get from that?
Yeah. So I mean, from how I interpreted it from Anish is a data warehouse is very rigid in the sense that you kind of have to think about going in, hey, what kind of reports am I going to
Mm,
want to produce? And I'm going to structure my data that way to get the reports. But, as you and I both know, those needs are always changing, right? And so to have to restructure your database to get
yeah,
the report is a never-ending task. And
it's
so
expensive. It takes time. Yeah,
totally. And so a data lake is much more flexible. The data is in there in a way that you can pull it out however you need to get the reports that you need.
flexible. I mean that's really cool because you're totally right. Even when I asked you, where do you start? And you'd said, marketing automation. I was thinking of the old mentality. I was thinking, well, don't you need to know what reports you need at the very
Yeah,
beginning? But to
yeah,
your point, if you're going with the data lake mentality,
yeah,
model, strategy, and the tools that support it, you don't need to start with that. You're not stuck in the rut of the
right,
truck that came in front of you. Yeah,
totally.
sweet.
Yeah, and I think, the way we approach it, no matter what the report is that the person needs to get at the end of the day, that foundation that you're creating in your marketing automation and CRM, really, there's some best practices that we always follow so that no matter how they want to look at the data at the end, we're kind of putting it in there in a clean format that's going to get you accurate and a complete results.
Okay. What are those best practices? What do you
Yeah.
make sure you're doing?
So, I mean, I'll try and keep this kind of vendor agnostic as much as I can.
That's okay. It's all good.
But like,
We can
yeah,
arm wrestle later. Marketo.
yeah. I mean, I'm sure the principles are essentially the same. So,
Yeah, the strategy should be for sure.
in Marketo, you would set up they're called programs, but you would kind of have a program for each kind of tactic that you do. So like a webinar would have one, an email blast would have another, a trade show would have another. So kind of mapping out all of the tactics you do and what are the different kind of stages that someone could be at in one of those tactics. So if we use a webinar as an example, you could invite someone to a webinar, you could have them register, they could no-show, or they attend, right? And so
Yeah.
working with the customer to identify what does success look like for each of your tactics. So
I like that.
is getting someone registered a success, or do they have to be there and actually consume the data or your marketing engagement to be a success? So that is like what I would consider 101 of setting this foundation up. I also think it's really critical to have a full one-to-one sync between your marketing automation platform and your CRM.
Yep.
So that, there's a ton of benefits to doing that, but I think one of the biggest ones is that, your CRM is going to be where your opportunity data is, where your pipeline is, where your ROI metrics are going to be. And so those CRM and marketing automation have to be fully in sync for you to get a full and a complete picture of your attribution.
This is good stuff. I want to take it back to the first thing you mentioned. Setting up a program for different tactics. What I got out of that was definitely highlighting that each tactic source you're using has its own separate stages. To your point,
yeah.
In a trade show, there's different stages that are different types of responses that they're at. Webinar, you listed out different: registered, no-showed, attended, maybe engaged.
Yeah.
They were asking questions throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, totally.
But keeping track of that and understanding how that went, because then you can even be more relevant to people as that happens. And then what I love what you said was, what does success look like for each one of these? What does for each source? And it reminded me of a convo I had with Jim Lenskold, who wrote the book Marketing ROI. He's a great dude. And then also Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach. They all teach this idea, exactly what you're talking about, of before you even get into it, what does success look like?
Yeah.
I love that. That forethought. You're just thinking like, what do I want the outcome to be? Will help you be more organized and actually executing that. That's really cool.
Totally. Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things too, when you're going into this, is like having the company bought in to doing an initiative like this, right? Like what we've seen with our customers is it really does have to be a top-down thing where you have some executive buy-in to say hey, we're going to start operating as a more analytical company. And when we have these numbers, we're going to use them. We're going to use this as a strategic weapon, as opposed to, hey, the marketing team bubbles up some reports and then the executives say, you know what, we're going to keep running on gut feel. And that kind of dynamic is hard to overcome.
Have you seen that? Have you bumped into groups you're either working with,
I think,
talk to, and
I think
frustrating, right?
Going through a big reporting project like this, where you start to get those ROI numbers, the change management aspect of it is huge, no matter what, even if you do have the buy-in, because lots of people in the organization have been used to operating when they didn't have this data, right? When it was more relationship based, or like I said, trusting your gut. And so a lot of times when you put something like this in place, it can come as a bit of a shock to people, where the data doesn't line up to what they had in their head.
I totally get that. It's like we need a change management course for marketers,
Yeah.
It's not just enough to just drop this badass technology in there. You've got to get people to adopt it. Man, to have leadership team say something like that. I was once talking to someone, in Canada, not to, I know you're up north, you're our
Yeah.
cousins to the north
Oh,
here.
yeah.
Um, and, and the poor guy, he said his company, they basically went backwards. They had, marketing automation and a CRM, and their president was like, "We're going back to Excel." And I was like, "No, no."
That's
I was
tough.
like, "I'm like, are you sure you're looking for a job?" He's like, "No, I'm gonna stick it out." I'm like, "Okay, better you than me. I'd be out of there."
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, some people are more willing to embrace change than others. And I think
Sure.
if the data is kind of telling a different narrative than someone else's agenda, like that can happen, right? I think
Yeah.
too, a challenging part is that this space, I mean, I've been doing attribution reporting since my Cognos days, like over
Mm,
10 years ago, but it's
geez.
still relatively new. I would say like if you go to 10 different companies, they're going to do it 10 different ways. There
Yeah.
isn't, there hasn't really yet been sort of defined metrics that every company looks at. And part of the reason is, every business is obviously different.
Mm-hmm.
And even within your attribution, looking at first touch or multi-touch or last touch, they all tell you different things too, right? There isn't necessarily like a right answer there. It's just different lenses to look at the data.
What are your thoughts on, the priorities? First touch, multi-touch. How do you approach that? Because I know a lot of people want to skip first touch and go right to like multi-touch and try to decipher tea leaves.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like cutting off one leg on a chair. If you stop looking at first touch and you don't care about that, then how are you getting your leads into your system, right? Or if you
Right.
stop looking at all those programs that influence your deals, how do you get people from that first touch to the one that actually closes? So they all work together. Honestly, it's relatively easy now to show everyone all of that data at once, right? And so what we usually do is we have kind of a reporting attribution framework that we walk people through and show them the different lenses and show them why they should be looking at one way of looking at it
Mm,
versus the other. And at the end of the day, it's simple. You just want to figure out where should you invest more, where should you keep your investment the same, and where should you invest less.
yeah,
And usually by looking at all of that, you can give somebody a pretty good idea of where they should go.
I like that. It takes a lot of that complexity out of it. It's just you're just trying to
Yeah,
optimize. You're just trying to figure out what do I do more of and what do I do less of. You know,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
totally. Hey, question for you. You mentioned the one-to-one sync. Not to take it too technical on people, but hey, when you have two superpowers like this in the same phone call, you mentioned the idea of the one-to-one sync, and
Mhm.
oftentimes people will leave maybe unqualified leads inside their marketing automation only to
Mhm.
send them over to CRM, to Salesforce. I think that's
Mhm.
our tool, right? Your tool, my tool. Send them over to
Yep.
Salesforce when they're ready, assigned to
Yep.
a sales rep. But there, to your point, there is that other side, which is saying just send them all over directly, and then maybe assign them when it's the right time. What's your take on that? And from a data
Yeah.
perspective, from a workflow perspective.
Yeah. I think like it's kind of like database best practices, right? To
Okay.
have
Yeah.
databases all in sync as opposed to having silos. If you don't have a one-to-one sync, you end up with these silos, which causes duplication, right? A good example,
Huh.
if you hold leads back in Pardot or Marketo or whatever you use, um, sales won't see them. So if they go into CRM, they're working with someone new, even though marketing might already have them, now they're entering them into the CRM
Yep.
because they don't know that they're already in your
Right.
marketing automation system. Then you finally sync them over, and now you have duplicates.
Yeah. And what source do you go with? The sales, source or the marketing source? I see how there's
Exactly.
instantly an issue there.
And a lot of our clients will have hesitation about this because I know with Marketo, back in the early days, they were kind of recommending that you hold the unqualified people in Marketo until they're qualified and then you sync them over. But I mean, it's very simple in Salesforce to set up like a marketing user, right, in your Salesforce, and then just assign all of those unqualified leads to the marketing user. You're not creating a bunch of noise for your salespeople,
Right.
and you maintain that one-to-one sync that will give you many benefits down the road.
It's funny because I had the same type of education and the same type of environment where early on, back in the day, when we were
Yeah,
doing our marketing emails uphill both ways, our nurture
yeah,
campaigns went uphill both ways. Back in the day, it was that was the point, was to do that. Maybe
yeah,
it was before all the acquisitions and before the systems had really gotten better aligned with the CRM, and you couldn't really
mhm,
control it. Well, like once it went over there, it was like
yeah,
dark land. It was the
yeah,
dark web once we got sent over to sales, and you knew no one knows what's going on. But maybe it's
yeah,
because of this evolution where we're starting to look at sales and marketing on the same revenue team, as opposed to
yeah,
siloed
exactly,
organization. I think as that's been
yeah,
happening and tech's been coming along with it, you're right. I think even as I'm thinking about it now, I'm changing my recommendation from just always being keep it separate to that one-to-one you're talking about. Makes sense.
I think it's if you distill it down, it's just communication, right? I
Yeah.
think if you're withholding information even when you're talking to someone, I think being transparent and having as good a communication as you can between sales and marketing will help in the end, right? Now,
Right.
I'm not suggesting, hey, let's create, an alert for the salespeople for anyone who has ever sent an email. No,
Mm-hmm.
but I think if they're in there in the right way, with the right permissions and whatever visibility the organization feels comfortable with, that it's a good thing at the end of the day, especially from an attribution perspective. When we do attribution reporting for our clients, one of the big things that we always advocate for is including the lead object, so leads in your attribution reports. Um, and historically, like if you run attribution through Marketo or through Salesforce, you're going to see stuff that's on the account, right? Or that's on the contact roles of that opportunity. I know we're getting technical again, but to bring it up, the lead object, if you're not looking that in your attribution model, you're probably missing out on about 70% of your attribution.
Interesting. And that's because the first touch is there, especially in an
Yeah,
ABM situation. There's multiple people involved, but what was the catalyst to get that whole
totally.
organization buzzing?
And many of those people might still be on that lead. They haven't been converted to the right account yet. It happens all the time. And
Right.
so that's something that is just huge to factor that in.
Do you see a lot of that? People not using leads?
Yeah, I would say most people are not using leads still.
Really? Like in
Yeah.
Salesforce or just in general?
Sorry. So like most people are using the lead object. Don't get me wrong there. Yeah, almost everyone. But many are not incorporating leads into their attribution model,
Ah,
right? They're only looking at contacts or under an account or contact roles on an opportunity.
right. Right. Oh,
Yeah,
I see what you're saying. Yeah, right. Because when
yeah,
you convert it, you have that, but missing
yeah,
out on the lead in the first place.
totally.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right. That's cool. Now I wanted to take us back for a second to that change management because, you know, rolling up my wizard sleeves here, when wizards like you and I come into our organization, like change is inevitable. That's probably why you got into I love changing things, improving things.
Mm-hmm.
If I had my way, I'd just smash everything like the bull in the china shop and then rebuild. You're kind of like one of those home remodel shows where like, oh my gosh. But to your point, you can't do that because usually the customer, client, or if you're internal, wherever you're at, there's people that you need. You can't just roll them over. You need to be able to get them on board. And I think one of the things you said was so critical. Getting the company bought in, having that top-down executive buy-in, so important. Any recommendations for the marketer out there that's making changes now or about to make changes, or it's kind of like us where they're about to rock someone's world? How do you go about doing that without tipping the boat over?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, getting some executive sponsorship, having like a steering committee or something set up within your organization with the right stakeholders. I think, CMOs that we talk to, all they want to talk about is attribution usually. So if your CMO is not thinking about this yet, I think it's worthwhile having a conversation about them, helping to educate them on what it can bring to the organization, and talking about what success looks like, what it's going to do for the company, and what you're hoping to do with the data. In my opinion, you should, like, a good goal of implementing ROI reporting or attribution reporting is that you're actually making budget changes based on the data that you get. And so it doesn't have to be like, hey, we're going to blow up the whole budget and do everything that this data is telling us, right? But I think a good way to start is just, hey, we're going to do at least some pilot changes on this. So we're going to do some experiments based on the data. I think that would be good buy-in to get from, senior leadership at your company. So that's number one. I think setting expectations too, that it's not going to be perfect, right? It's, don't expect 100% accuracy on this, because if you do, you're going to be disappointed.
Right.
So that's a huge one, as well as just making sure that you have the right expectations, making sure people know there's going to be a change, getting them bought in, and also, give yourself time. It takes time to put new systems in place, to figure out the kinks, to run a few different models and get to the point where everyone is confident with the data. So that I think would be the biggest thing. We worked with one company recently where, they had invested a ton of time to get this new attribution model in place, built out all of the reporting and everything. And right before they kind of finally got to success, there was a lot of pushback, right? And if they hadn't have just kept going, they could have wasted all of that time. But, they got through that hard part, and now they're really reaping the rewards of that. So.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Keep going. You're going to get some pushback. That's okay.
Yeah.
Don't freak out. Keep going.
Exactly. And I think the last thing, and I've seen this when I was client side, trying to push attribution, and I can't even tell you how many times I explained to the executives at my company what influence pipeline was. I must have explained it every time I showed the report in our weekly meeting. They asked questions for like a year, right?
Right.
And kept explaining. So like when you're probably ready to just stop explaining it anymore, that's when people are finally getting it.
Right. That's
And
important. You're going to have to explain it several times. It's not just like share it once and everyone's got it. Nope. They probably caught a couple words of what you said, and then you got to say it again and again.
exactly. Yeah. And
How do
they're
you
not,
explain it? I'd love to hear that part.
yeah. So, I mean, it definitely depends who I'm talking to,
Sure.
right? If
Sure.
I'm
Maybe like a
talking to,
senior level person or something.
right. Yeah, and that's important, right? Because if you're a marketing operations person and you get into all of that like contact role object stuff, like you're gonna lose the executives real fast.
Right.
But I think the way that I would explain like a modern attribution system to an executive is um, that basically in an automated way, we can now know how all of our marketing campaigns are working and which ones are giving us the best ROI. So these reports are going to help you, Mr. or Mrs. CMO, better allocate your budget to hit your numbers or give you backup to request more budget and show what that budget is actually going to mean for your pipeline or revenues. That's what it can do for them.
Got it. I love that. Modern attribution to an executive, as I wrote down. It's an automated way to see which ones are giving the best ROI, what activities, what sources and channels are giving us the best ROI. That's music to their ears too, because you're saying, I'm going to stop just spending money. I'm going to spend money smartly. You know, no one argues with that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when I say modern too, I think a lot of the older attribution models, people know within the company kind of how to game those models.
Okay.
People know, hey, if we're reporting on last touch in Salesforce, I'm going to change that last touch primary campaign source on that person to my program, right?
Geez.
Even if maybe it's not. And this isn't always like a malicious thing. Sometimes they're not looking at all. They don't have access to all the data to know exactly what was the last touch or who was the real primary contact. And so in these new attribution models, you can remove all of that and just make it about data. And not only is the data better, but people don't have to spend their time making sure the data is good. The systems do that.
Right. Huh. I love this. You know what? You had a really great list on that change management. So critical. The idea of the steering committee involving people and letting people know there's going to be a change over and over again, explaining it in a way that they can understand, setting expectations, all good stuff. Doing those kind of things in advance, it's so helpful, right? Because then it takes some of the burden off while you're in the thick of trying to get that accuracy up and really understand what's going on and help avoid people gaming it, because it's not like a he said, she said, siloed marketing versus sales. Now it's like we're a company. We're trying to, as a team, get more customers. That's cool. Very cool.
Exactly.
So we're coming up on the end of the year, and it makes me, nothing like the end of the year to make you think about eating cookies, signing up for the gym, the future, next year, maybe setting goals. Do you set goals for yourself or anything for next year?
I think
fly by the seat of your pants.
Definitely more of the latter. Although as we're bigger as a company, we're getting kind of more proactive and planning things and taking those goals that are in my head and actually documenting them. That's kind of the big thing. So
totally.
I think I haven't done it enough in the past. actually like documented them. I always kind of have them in my mind, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, getting more proactive and strategic around them.
You're right. Because there's so many things out there. And I think you and I were talking about even that MarTech image, and for people listening, I don't know if I describe it. It's this gigantic infographic of thousands. Normally I exaggerate, but I think it is like
I
thousands of
think
little
it's like
mini logos,
over 6,000 now.
6,000 logos. And this is what, like marketing technology, supposedly?
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, Scott Brinker
Yep.
has kind of put this together over the years. I don't know. I think he's been doing it for 7 or 8 years now.
It is.
And it started off with a few hundred, and every year there's just like more logos and more
Yeah.
logos.
Yeah.
6,600 logos now. And yeah, I mean, I can only imagine people who are new to this space, like how overwhelming that must be. And I mean, we've worked with our clients, hundreds of Marketo clients over the years, and I can tell you there's probably like really 100 vendors that you might see consistently. So yeah, maybe that's one other myth that I would kind of smash is like don't think that you need 6,000 vendors or that you even need to evaluate 6,000.
Right.
Probably like 100 or less that are the ones that are kind of really helping the clients that we work with anyway.
That's interesting. Yeah, because even 100's a lot, but I guess you have 100 different vendors of maybe a few types
Right.
for your stack. But you're
Exactly.
right. You don't need 1,000 things, and maybe thankfully marketing automation helped with that, because instead of you needing the landing page tool and the ROI tool and then this and that, you can consolidate a lot of that under marketing automation.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like, yeah, so we actually at Revenue Pulse, we put together as like our 28 favorite vendors um, that we hear good feedback from our clients
Cool.
consistently. And so we kind of try to put that together to help people figure out, like, don't worry about 6,000, like there's probably under 100 that you can look at. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't know about so much like the Pardot community, but
Sure.
Marketo has this big launch point community. I think they're trying to be similar to the App Exchange, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah.
Salesforce has done such an incredible job of this, where I think they do kind of the base platform, and then if you need something else, they're not trying to do everything.
Right.
They have partners who are really good who can help you.
Right.
Right. So,
well, that 28 sounds great. So where do we go for that? And maybe just revenue. What's the
yeah, if you go to revenuepulse.com,
Yep.
PULSE.com, it's right on our homepage.
Awesome. And we'll put a link in the show notes too for people just to click on it.
Yeah. So like you said, everyone needs a webinar vendor, for example.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Which one do you use?
We have like our favorite webinar vendor, which is what we recommend. And again, we are working mostly with like enterprise customers. So we always recommend On24 because, very reliable. You can customize it however you want for your look and feel. We were talking earlier about, the different statuses of a webinar, right? On24 now can actually tell you like not just attended, but like that engaged metric that you were talking about before. Did they stay for the whole webinar? Did they ask a question? Like that's kind of the next level. So yeah, we really like them. There's other good vendors. What we look for is like good integration with Marketo is always a big thing as well. So
yeah, because if you can sync that data automatically, and we've used GoToWebinar for a while just because of a similar kind of sync. And I think On24 syncs with Pardot, and so does WebEx and a few of the other ones. But you're right, there's some of that the syncing. If you've got some out of the box plugins, for instance, those tools can be really great at automatically sending reminders. Like,
Yep.
in fact, like Chester Impact, we're doing a webinar this afternoon. I'm doing one this afternoon. Yeah, I'm so stoked. I'm nurturing. But we didn't have to send out a reminder saying 1 day until the webinar, 1 hour until the webinar. So it had a couple built
Right.
so that our
Yeah.
staff isn't doing reminders 5 times a week, you know?
Totally. Yeah, exactly. So stuff like that. And yeah, I just thought it was interesting over the years working with all these different clients to see the same names coming up
Yeah.
over and over again. And then a lot of our customers were asking us, like, oh, it's overwhelming looking at like Launchpoint. Who should we, like, what's the short list basically?
Yeah. What is the short list? Right.
Yeah.
I don't even, what even are those 6,000? Because you're right. I don't think I've even been exposed to that many, you know? Just
I think, I mean, I have to think that a lot of them might be like industry specific solutions.
yeah, okay.
So maybe if you're in banking, there's 500 for you
Right.
or whatever, right? But yeah, it's a good question. I haven't looked at all the logos and seen it, you know.
You can't. They're too small. They're too small.
Yeah. I need a magnifying glass or something.
Imagine looking at your screen with a magnifying glass and someone comes into your office. They're like, what are you doing? Like my grandmother would be like, don't get that close to the screen. You're going to hurt your eyes, you know?
Yeah. I think I pretty much did that when the last one came out to try and find the NAC logo. I think I looked for like 20 or 30 minutes, but it's like,
Did it make the 6,000 cut?
We got on there. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, tell me about that because it's probably a good time to bring that up. So you're doing the Marketo and the consulting, and then you saw it. What challenge did you see, and how did this thing come about?
So I mean, even before I started the Revenue Pulse, which is the Marketo consultancy, you know, I was a marketer on the client side. I was at Cognos, who is like an early adopter of Eloqua. And got really into like the marketing automation space, like in the early days. And then I went from like Cognos, got acquired by IBM, which is like 400,000 person company, which I realized like just wasn't for me.
Yeah, they got a weird culture too.
Yeah, it was, you know, very smart people. I learned so much there, but I just wasn't happy with like what I was doing.
Right.
And one day I was like walking out of work and I'm just like, what? Like life is too short. I need to go and do something where I'm like passionate about it. And so I went to a startup. It's like 100-person company. They had no marketing automation. We talk about attribution. I remember one of my first days there, I sat in a meeting where they talked about what they did in marketing the year before. And it was like, we went to 47 trade shows. And then I was like, okay. And what happened at those? Like, how many people did you meet? How much pipeline? Because I was used to that at Cog. And there was none of that. So that's when I was like, okay, we need marketing automation here because we're just like, that's great. We did 47 trade shows, but we don't know if those turned into a single opportunity. Right. And so I had known about Eloqua, so I was pushing to get Eloqua, that company, but then.
That's a beast, man.
It would have been overkill for sure. And then I saw Marketo and really just like, I honestly like fell in love with the technology and implemented and let it there. Then I went to another startup and did the same thing. And then I started getting some consulting offers on the side and started the agency. And so how I got into NAC so NAC is an enterprise email creation platform. But how I got there was like, when I was at the startups, it was such a pain to create like an email or a landing
Oh,
page template.
100%.
We had to hire an agency. Like
Hmm.
it took like 2 months to get this template so I could send emails out. And then I started Revenue Pulse, the Marketo consultancy, and we were building
Yeah.
custom templates like nonstop. Every client had that problem.
Yeah.
Um, and by the end, like even though it was great revenue and the clients were happy with them, I was just like, we're doing essentially the same thing for every client,
Right.
and we're starting over every time. And
Right.
so I personally just wanted like an outlet or somewhere to be like, hey, when we do the work, when the next client comes in, we're not starting over. We're using what we've already built and continually making that better. And
Right.
so that's where the idea came from. And
How does it
it was
work?
so so the initial iteration of NAC was we only had like 3 email templates at
Sure.
first. That's what we launched with. So like there is like a newsletter and like a webinar invitation and like a content download email. And so you went in there and you could customize like your images and colors and links. And then you could sync it like directly into Marketo. So what used to take you like 2 weeks or 2 months, you could literally do in 5 minutes. And so
Wow.
basically, yeah. So like we had a bunch of people sign up for that. We initially did like $99 a month, sign up with a credit card, and we had like hundreds of customers pretty much
Wow.
open.
Jeez.
Um, and then, from there, with that product, we built over 20,000, or our customers built over 20,000 templates using the platform. And we got a lot of feedback from people that was like, hey, this is great. It's making templates quicker, but I still want more flexibility and control over those once I
Mm.
get them into Marketo.
Right.
And that required coding. And so our whole thing was like, we don't want marketers to have to code anything. So from there, we kind of built out a couple of other products that do more than just the templates. It's really about kind of completely bypassing Marketo's email editor to create the entire email within NAC and then
Wow.
sync it over into Marketo for deployment.
So you can actually sync a whole email template. Is it like an API that enables you
Yeah,
to do that?
yeah.
Can you get stuff out that way?
Out of Marketo?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can, yeah, with Marketo's API, like you could fetch things as well, but we're essentially pushing the email. And so, one thing is like building the emails so you don't have to do the code. And then the other thing we realized is like collaboration and workflow and approvals of emails could be way better than what it is right now in most
Right.
marketing automation platforms where there really is zero collaboration built in.
Totally.
And so we're really going that way, and we're working with a lot of Marketo's biggest customers who have like hundreds of
Yeah.
people building emails around the world, build them within NAC so that they can remain on brand. They don't need to know how to code HTML, and they have collaboration, workflow, and approval tools built
Mhm.
in to help them make email at scale.
Wow. Have you looked into Pardot? I see, yeah, Eloqua and Marketo.
Yeah, we actually have. We would love to do this with
Yeah.
Pardot. But unfortunately, we were talking about APIs. Pardot does not have the APIs to let you or anyone push emails into the platform.
Yeah, I've heard about people in the past being able to modify some templates a little bit, but not that creation side. But it's risky, right? Because when you were mentioning fetch, I mean, it's kind of funny we're chatting, but I help a lot of people move off of Marketo onto Pardot, and be able to fetch some email templates would be awesome. I'll write you a check today, but but companies then want to protect. I mean, they don't mind you building things, but I'm sure if you're using their API to help customers get off their platform, that'll end pretty quickly,
Yeah. So I mean, I'm pretty sure you can fetch emails or templates through the API, but I'm not sure how much it would help you there, because there's going to be a bunch of like Marketo specific code that's not going to play nicely with Pardot. And I mean, we have had some NAC customers who are on Marketo who went to Pardot, and they come to us and they're like, Pierce, please make NAC for Pardot.
Nice. Well, yeah,
I would love to.
On that. Yeah.
I would love to. I need to talk to them more about their APIs, but if you know any, let me know.
Could a Marketo customer use NAC to fetch all the current templates they have to modify, or is it just creating new ones and then putting them on there?
It's really about creating new. I mean, the beauty with NAC is you could take a Marketo template that you already have and rebuild it in NAC using our drag and drop editor. And
start from scratch.
10 minutes, probably make it better than what you had before.
Right. That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, it's one of those things, it's funny you saw it from both sides. You were the client waiting on the template, and then you were the guy building the template, and like, man, I didn't get into marketing to just build templates all day long,
Totally. I think, cool. This
is exciting. Is this going, I mean, you've got gigantic logos, and Engagio's giving you quotes on their, man, where is this going? Is this the real priority now? Because I could see this easily taking over the planet.
Yeah. I think we're seeing a lot of traction in the enterprise space, with those bigger customers who have big marketing teams, right? And this is something that we find a lot of our customers are kind of struggling with, is like, how do we set up our marketing operations team and our marketing team to scale? So we've seen a lot of big companies try the centralized model, right? Where you might have 20 marketing operations experts, right? And those are the only people in Marketo doing anything.
Right.
And then you kind of have like a decentralized model where anyone can go in there, any of the 100 marketers, and it's like the Wild West, right?
Right.
And I've seen companies go from decentralized to centralized and then back to decentralized, because they, with the centralized model, it's great because the people in there are in there every day. They know exactly what they're doing. They don't make as many mistakes. But the problem is you have 20 people who eventually become a bottleneck because everything has to be done by them, right? And so with NAC, we're kind of allowing companies to do a hybrid model. They can have a centralized marketing operations team, but those people don't have to be tasked with like building out emails, which is a huge portion of time that is spent overall on Marketo.
Totally. And it gets even worse if you're on NetSuite. Hey-oh. I remember spending hours. Like, that was my whole job, or Silverpop. Hey, I'm here just building an email all day. That's my job as a marketer. Not only all day, like all week, right? Monthly campaign, because it took all month to make a campaign. It's crazy.
And worse is like if you have to start getting into the HTML, it's not looking good in Outlook 2013 and you spend a day trying to make a button work, you know? So
Right. You delete a sentence in the WYSIWYG editor, and it accidentally deletes a table row and a table cell behind the scenes in HTML. Good luck figuring that out.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
awesome. I could see
So,
this definitely addressing that need, man. That's really cool.
yeah. Yeah.
So,
So
oh, go ahead. Do you say something?
yeah, I was just gonna say I pretty much split my time right now between the two
Sure.
companies.
Sure.
And it's really interesting because you kind of see like the maturity of like a 6-year-old company with Revenue Pulse. Like we're getting very buttoned up. We have processes, like
Yep.
we have systems in place. Whereas NAC, you know, we're still a little ways away from that. We're still figuring things out. There's a lot of foundation to build still. But
Right.
yeah, it's kind of nice to be able to go back and forth and take some things from one company and apply them to another. So yeah.
Right. Right. Huh. And so you got one foot in the services and one foot in the product side too.
Yeah.
It's probably
Yeah.
interesting, you know, where you're
Which
trying to
is
build user base versus, you know, all that.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I mean the most valuable part of that I've found is just the people, you know, you learn so much, right? Being in the services space,
Yeah.
talking to customers every day, seeing how they work and being able to use that intelligence and that information to build something to help them, something they might not even know they need help with yet.
You know, that's cool that you say that, because a lot of times people say, you know, if you're in the service side, you don't have the mentality. If you go to product, it's totally different. It's the grass is always greener. But I like the flip side of that, which is you've actually been talking to your customer, working with them on a day-to-day basis for a long time.
Yeah.
You're great. You already know what their needs are. Just don't
Yeah.
lose that when you go to the product side, and maybe change your model
Totally.
up a little bit. But yeah, that's
Yeah. And I can totally see how that happens, right? Like with the
mm,
services side, you're talking to your
yeah,
customers. You have weekly calls with your customers. You're
sure.
visiting them, you know, you're grabbing dinner or whatever. With the product side, it's so much easier to have that barrier between you and your customer. You know, you sell to them, you go through the onboarding, you
Yep.
get them going, and they do their thing, right? Which
Right.
is nice in the sense that from running a business, you know, you focus on the platform and that should take care of them. But I
Right.
agree, you know, and I see that myself. Like you kind of you have to make more of an effort to stay in touch with your customers. Whereas services, it just kind of naturally happens.
Happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a value to doing both, you know, to having one foot in one side. Though I could see Knack quickly adding so many users that you're going to be a busy guy if you're not already.
Yeah. Hopefully that's the goal. Yeah.
Pierce, who are you, man? I'm curious, you know. So you, I get that big company like bought by IBM and you just create all these startups, but even before that, how, you know, I mean, your last name's fascinating. I had to ask you how to say it. Like, who are you? Where did you come from? How did you become, you know, what you are today?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, my last name, my grandfather like immigrated from India to Toronto,
Oh wow.
like back in the 50s. And so yeah, so like I'm like Indian, Scottish, Irish, and American.
That sounds
Um,
like a cool
my,
combo.
my wife is Italian and Portuguese, so my kids now are just like Canadians. That's
Right.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think like I've always liked business. I remember even in like elementary school, we had this like fundraiser campaign where they gave us like this booklet and you could go around and sell things like to your neighbors and you got points depending on like how many products you sold.
Yeah.
And I remember there's this like Porsche phone that you could get if you got like
It
1,000
was a
points.
Porsche. It was a Like a
phone,
car?
like a landline phone.
A phone is a Porsche,
Yeah,
and you pick
yeah,
it up and it's a phone? That
yeah.
sounds cool.
So I I don't know. It was like the first time I was like on commission essentially. And I
Yeah.
remember I just like I sold something to like every single person on my street. And I got the phone,
Yeah.
and it was like, I was like 12 or something.
Right.
Um, yeah, and
Do
then
you still have it?
the funny story about that is literally like the second time I used it, it just totally broke.
Oh no.
yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
no.
It's just funny. I don't know if that's like a metaphor for something in the future, but yeah, like don't work just for the Porsche because it's not worth it.
There you go.
Um,
That's a good one.
yeah, and
Well,
then yeah, like
you know
I
what?
still,
Another story would have been
yeah,
if you just picked it up right now on video. Like
yes.
that's what I'm calling you on right now, Casey.
That's why the audio is so crystal clear.
That's right. It's my perfect Porsche phone.
And then yeah, then like still to this day, like my best and worst job ever was I was like a big skier and I wanted to go to the ski camp like in Whistler
Okay.
in summertime, but it's like back then for me like a lot of money. I didn't have a job, and my dad knew this guy who like ran a telemarketing company. And so
Okay.
I was like, I can do that. And I went there, and like on my first shift, I did not, we were supposed to sell coupon books. Like I got hung up on like 50 times and I didn't sell a single thing. And the guy sitting beside me was like, Pierce, give me your phone. I'm going to sell on the next call. And I was like, no, you're not. Like, I just called like 100 people. And he's like, give me the phone. And it was all random dials,
Yeah.
right? He just got on there the very next call and sold this coupon book for like
Yeah.
40 bucks and got someone's credit card over the phone.
What?
And so like I just started listening to this, how he did his pitch, what he was saying, and then try to like adapt it for me. And then I started getting better at it, and I was able to pay for my ski trip, and I learned like so much. Like it was, I hated going to that job every day, but like it taught me a lot about sales.
Right. Man, that's
Yeah.
such a powerful experience, too. And shots fired. The guy was like, it's like Babe Ruth saying, like,
Yeah.
someone's going out of the park. Let me show you. You're like, dude,
Yeah.
numbers. Come on.
Yeah.
I tried 50 to 100 of them, and
Yeah.
you sold that next person.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was different? What was he doing different than you were at the time?
I
And then
mean,
obviously you've since adopted.
like he definitely kind of had a script that he used,
Okay.
but how he opened, he would tell people like a joke, he's
Okay.
like, hey, I'm so and so, and the great news is I'm not calling for a donation.
Right.
And like right away, that kind of put people at ease.
Right. Because he's being
And
real.
yeah, and then the next thing he just kind of said, like, I'm not going to take like an hour of your time too. So, you're just kind of like, especially with cold calling, like disarming people at
Yeah.
first. And then, yeah, I mean, he kind of would make it kind of not emotional, but he would bring in some like humanness to it. Like there was a charity that we were selling these coupon books for, so he would talk about the impact that it had on the people, and explaining the greater purpose of what he was doing. So
So I was gonna say it wasn't a donation, but kind of it is. But you made a
yeah,
coupon
no,
book out of it.
exactly, exactly. So
Oh
So
man.
yeah, that was cool. And then, then I got into email marketing. I worked at like a Microsoft partner who was
Okay.
selling Dynamics. They were like a Microsoft Dynamics integrator. And that's when I first saw like email marketing. It was like right when that came out, when you could actually like see who opened and clicked your emails.
Yeah.
And I remember it just blew me away, because before that, I was literally writing like envelopes, like writing envelopes to invite people to this event. And so like I literally wrote like 1,000 envelopes and put this like piece of paper in and mailed it out. And we got like 10 people to show up to this event. So then I started doing email marketing. I'm like, I can see who's like opening and clicking, and it just blew me
Wow.
away. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's cool. Our paths have actually, it's funny how we both ended up in similar spaces, toward the end and toward where we're at now. It's not the end. I take it back. But I had a chance to sell tuxedos for a while, and
Okay.
similar experience. It's crazy. I'm not going to be a salesperson long term, but you're on the spot dealing with a particular situation, and then likewise, moving on. I worked with a Microsoft partner, and back in the day, creating websites. But it's those kind of experiences that can really shape you. Now you end up going to school though in like Austria, right, or something like that, to that effect.
Yeah. That was the
How did that happen?
That was all the skiing. I just, I wasn't even thinking about like business or anything back then, but I
Sure.
remember there was at my high school, someone came in and they were like, yeah, I went to Austria for a year for school, and I like skied, and I was like, that sounds amazing. What program is that? Sign me up for it.
Right.
So yeah, it's like this international business program where you kind of learn a new language and you go away for your third year. And really, like, I just did it so that I could ski.
Right.
Like, but it turned out to be also, really interesting, and taught me a lot about marketing, where I kind of did like a concentration there. But yeah, I think I had like 9 hours of class a week, and I try to put all of the classes in one day. So
man, so you really were skiing all the time.
yeah, pretty much.
That's sick.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Man, why even stop, right? Like, can I just keep going to school? This is great,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah. I'm trying to get skiing more again. I like last year, I think I went like 4 times, but my daughter's just starting to get into skiing. And
awesome. How old?
she's 3.5.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
You put her on some boards yet? Get her shuffling around?
Last year, a few times. She's like, there's these like, it's so much different from when I learned how to ski, which is just like, good luck. Like, send you down there. Now they have these like harnesses and stuff. So yeah, it's cool.
I think I'd be kind of partial to the old way. Be like, all right, son, it's bunny slope. So have at it.
Just send it.
I do recall a little bit of the trauma of learning to ski as a kid. Like the J bar. I kept trying to sit down. Don't sit down. Just stand up. But let it pull you. But don't sit down. What?
Yeah. What is it?
If you sit down, you fall off. And then
now they have like these magic carpets. You just slide onto them,
I've seen that.
Like a conveyor belt. It's
Yeah, it's like back in my day, we had a T-bar where we shared it with someone, and if someone fell off, you might have fallen off too. It was magic carpet malarkey.
Exactly.
That's cool. That's really cool, getting them into something that you're passionate about too. But you're right. When the family starts growing, those kind of things. I mean, for me, it's like mountain climbing is one of mine. But when was the last time I've been mountain climbing? It's been a while. I'm planning one for 2019. But it's like things change. But kids are awesome, aren't they? They're just like this whole other level of life.
Yeah. I feel like whenever I go skiing now, I'm not like in the terrain park or like skiing double blocks, but I'm on the bunny hill having like just as much fun.
Yeah.
Uh, and eventually she's going to be good enough to, and hopefully like skiing enough where that can be a cool thing we can
Do you
do
have a
too.
helmet?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did you make the shift to helmets? Because I don't even have a helmet yet. I'm like
Uh,
OG like that, little knit hat,
probably like I was definitely there for a long time, but a lot of the terrain parks required you to start wearing helmets. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
probably like 10 years. And the thing is, once you wear a helmet, you never ski without one again. Because like I just feel so like I'm missing something. And
Oh, interesting. Like a
yeah,
seatbelt, like driving
yeah,
without a seatbelt
totally.
feels
Yeah,
weird.
you kind of feel like, I should have my helmet. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think about all the times I pretended to be doing super G as a teen, screaming down the hill, with the goal of not stopping the whole
Yeah.
time.
Oh yeah.
All the craziness that I've done, or you in the terrain park, and
Yeah.
somehow we survived it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I did have a scare where I wasn't wearing a helmet and I kind of went off. I didn't see this kind of cat track on the
Oh,
hill
geez.
and I hit it and I actually fell. I like flew backwards off this cat track head first. And I was just like, I'm going to hit a tree or something.
Yeah.
And luckily, somehow, I like landed in a pile of powder
Ooh.
and I looked behind me, and there's literally a huge tree, like a foot behind me.
Huh.
So,
Wow.
experiences like that, I want my helmet on.
Yeah. No, I could see that.
Yeah.
Especially when you have kids too, or you just like,
Uh,
hey, why risk it? Might as well get. And they're
yeah.
cute. They're warm. Are they warm? I mean, I don't even have one. But I
Yeah.
need.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I usually wear like a little beanie under mine, but
Okay.
they're good to have. If you take one thing away from this podcast, wear a helmet when you ski.
Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. Now on that, I'll get a helmet. But then the second question I have, I've only done like New England skiing, Maine,
Yeah.
New Hampshire,
Yeah.
AKA skiing on ice. So I'm all good with my edges, but like in the occasional fluke in New England when you have a
Yeah.
little bit of powder. Uh, but I'd love to go out west and do that. Any recommendations on like what's the one that I should hit first?
Yeah. Yeah. And
What's a
I
good
think
powder
like
place?
your skiing is similar to where I am in Ottawa, like
Okay.
smaller mountains in quote,
Yeah.
a lot of ice. Uh, yeah, I mean, I've kind of skied all over the place. I still really like Whistler.
Okay.
Because it's got like the mountains are huge. There's like any type of terrain that you'd ever want.
Right.
And the village at the bottom, which is like right at the bottom of the mountain, has everything good restaurants, bars, entertainment. So
Cool.
I would check that one out. But I mean, you guys in the States have great spots in like Colorado and
Yeah.
California and like Wyoming. But yeah, hey, come up to Canada and you have like 30 cents on the dollar. It's
That's
probably
true. Yeah. What's
good.
around you? What's the one that you like to hit?
I ski mostly at Tremblant, which
Okay.
is about 2 hours from Ottawa.
Yeah.
But it's probably the biggest mountain around
Okay.
here. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I know they do like Ironman triathlons in the
Yeah.
summertime.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a cool
It's a
area.
great spot. It's similar, like when Intrawest owned all of those resorts, Tremblant. So they owned Whistler, and Tremblant was kind of like the East Coast Whistler.
Okay, cool. And you
Yeah,
can even you sound cool saying it too, like tremblant. And
yeah,
putting the
yeah.
French out there in your conversation with
I
people.
try. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, this has been awesome, man. What are some of the links? What are some of the ways people can connect with you? and, follow
Yeah,
up, some of those resources, or even just connect with you and get your
yeah,
insight, or even
totally.
you got Marketo.
I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, so would recommend anyone reach out there
Okay.
if they want to chat. You can check out revenuepulse.com
Okay.
and knack.io. So knak.io.
Okay. And also on Twitter, I saw you had a couple things on Twitter.
Twitter, yeah, marketing
One of your
101.
Twitters related to Tremblant?
Yeah, actually, I used to run like the Tremblant Parks, like the terrain park Twitter account
Huh.
for them.
No
Yeah,
kidding. Huh.
yeah. Been a long time.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I'm too old for the park now. That's why I got a ski powder. It's
More
easy.
forgiving.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That ouch will take a couple more days to go away.
yeah, exactly.
Shoot. Well, hey man, look at the clock. Like we've been in this like time vortex where
And
like just flew by. This has been awesome. So thank you so much for coming here. I've learned a bunch from you. I mean, I've been
right
writing
on.
stuff down left and
Yeah.
right. So this has been awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Casey. It's a lot of fun, and I agree. I can't believe she's almost an hour and a half.
Time
I
flies.
hopefully the listeners appreciated that.
Well, they better. And if they didn't, that's okay. 'Cause I did. I got stuff out. I'm going to go get a helmet for me and the kids. I'm going to get them on those skis because
Yeah,
kids on skis is super cute.
you were telling me you were on the trampoline right before this. You should probably
Yes.
wear the helmet on there too.
Honestly, I probably should. I think I almost hit a desk earlier today. So we would not have had this podcast if I walked into a table and knocked myself out. So yeah. I'll link you to the trampoline too. You never know. You might want.
Yeah. I like it. Nice.
Sweet. Well, all right, man. Well, hey, for everyone out there listening, if you learned something and we say this every time, if you didn't learn something, then you just need to stop listening, because I learned 1,000 things. Okay. So if you learned something, share this with someone else who think that needs to hear that around the attribution. That change management is huge, right? How not to get fired while trying to help your company out, right? So all those things are huge. Get this in somebody else's hands so they understand it. Maybe even your leadership, understanding, you're hearing from the man himself what pipeline attribution actually is, and explained in that great way. So get this to someone else. And I get, for everyone out there, hey, we will see you all next time. This has been the Hardcore Marketing Show.